Hi friends, welcome to the course on indirect tax laws for CA, CMA and CS final examinations. So what we are going to do now is we are going to have a small introductory session, or we can also call it as a teaser as to what is exactly in store for this particular course. So before you start a course, you need to know what exactly is there, right? So therefore, having that objective in mind, so what I have done is I have framed a few questions which when answered will give you a insight on what exactly is in store for you. So with that spirit, let's start, dear friends. So with the first question, so what exactly is the course? So this is the course for paper 8, indirect tax laws for CA final examinations, and also the relevant indirect tax papers for the CA, CS and the CMA final exam students as well. So the indirect tax paper is what is being covered, which broadly consists of GST law and customs and FTP. So this is what we are going to be seeing in this particular course. This particular paper, indirect tax laws, is much anticipated by the student fraternity, predominantly due to two reasons. First reason being it is the last paper, at least in the CA final examinations, it is the paper number 8, last paper. So once the students finish this particular paper, they have a break. So anticipating that break, at least they also anticipate this paper. So on a more serious note, fun side, this particular paper for your CA final examinations is a very much a scoring paper. So with a decent amount of effort and a consistent sustained effort, definitely a good amount of marks can be scored, point number 1. And point number 2, this is a very practical paper. Therefore, whatever you are going to study now, once you step into practice, you decide to go into indirect tax practice, or more so you go into industry and join any finance team, this particular paper, indirect tax, you will be applying right from day 1. Therefore, my dear friends, because of these two reasons, this is one of the most anticipated papers for the CA final students, and a very relevant paper. So now coming to the second question, what is the structure of this course? So as I said, this particular indirect tax laws for final examinations covers broadly 3 areas. One is your GST law, second is your customs, third is your FTP, foreign trade policy. But what we have done in this particular course, we have restructured the content in such a manner that it will be covered in 2 parts. So what are the 2 parts? Part number 1 will broadly cover your GST law, so which comprises of the bulk of the syllabus. So GST law is part number 1, and part number 2 we have clubbed the customs and the foreign trade policy together. Why? Because for one, customs and foreign trade policy both are relevant for cross-border transactions. Therefore, and they also have a lot of interplay between them due to this reason. So much common ground is there. Therefore, we thought that customs and FTP can be clubbed together so that the interplay between them can be understood much better by the students. So due to these two reasons, dear friends, we have designed the course or structured the course into 2 parts broadly. One is your GST law, which is significant part of the syllabus, and second part comprises of your customs and foreign trade policy, FTP. Fine. So now coming to the third question. So fine, 2 parts are there, okay, but what exactly is being covered there in those 2 parts, or what is the what are the laws that are being covered in these 2 parts? So for the first part, GST, we will be covering broadly the provisions of CGST Act 2017 as amended by the Amendment Act as well. So therefore, the CGST Act 2017 would form the backbone of the entire course structure of GST. And we would also be covering the provisions of IGST Act, Integrated Goods and Service Tax Act 2017, the Compensation Cess Act and the UTGST, Union Territory GST Act 2017. So these are the 4 broad acts we'll be covering. Now you would immediately ask me a question, then why are you not covering SGST Act, sir? So the State GST Act is not covered due to 2 reasons. Reason number 1, SGST Act is not covered separately in your CA material as well. CA issued material also does not cover SGST Act separately. So that is one reason, and foremost reason. Second reason is that it is also relevant because once you cover the CGST Act 2017, the provisions of the SGST Act 2017 are also similar, and to some extent we can say they are almost the same. Therefore, once we cover the CGST Act provisions, automatically the provisions of SGST Act are also covered. So we need not cover them separately. Fine, guys? So due to these 2 reasons, SGST Act are not covered separately, and we can also add a third reason if you want to. There are 30 plus SGST Acts which are there in the country. Therefore, each state has its own SGST Act. For example, Tamil Nadu has its own SGST Act, so on and so forth. Therefore, it would be difficult to cover the SGST Act separately, and it is also not very useful to cover them separately because CGST Act will suffice. So on account of all these reasons, SGST Acts are not covered separately in this particular course. But though CGST Act may form the backbone of the entire discussion, we would also be covering the provisions of IGST Act, Compensation Cess Act and UTGST Act wherever they are relevant. For instance, when we want to know about the place of supply, we want to find out the place of supply, we have to discuss section 10, 11, 12, 13 of the IGST Act, to some extent section 14 and 15 as well. Therefore, when you want to know the place of supply, we have to refer the IGST Act. Same case, when we want to know whether a particular supply is an intrastate supply or an interstate supply. So for that purpose also, we would have to refer the IGST Act. Therefore, my dear friends, wherever the provisions of IGST or Compensation Cess or UTGST Act, as the case may be, become relevant, we would also cover them parallelly. Fine, guys. So for the first part GST, this is what would be covered broadly, 4 acts, and the relevant CGST rules also will be covered. And for the second part, your customs and your FTP, for that we will be covering the provisions of the Customs Act 1962 and Foreign Trade Policy as relevant for your examinations and amended from time to time. So fine, guys. So these are the broad laws and the acts and the rules that we will be covering. This is notification, circulars, etc. As and when they are relevant, we will also cover them, needless to say that. Fine. So coming to the fourth question, who can use this particular course? So as I was saying, this course is for the final examinations of CA, CMA and CS students. So they are the relevant students for this particular course. My dear friends, this particular course has been designed keeping in mind the syllabus of the CA Institute final exams for indirect tax paper, but at the same time it is also equally relevant for CMA and CS students, final students as well, due to the reason that the syllabi of the 3 institutes as far as this particular paper in the final exams are almost same. So therefore, we can say that though CA final exams indirect tax syllabus forms the base of this particular course, it is also equally relevant for CMA and CS final students as well. Fine, guys. So these to answer the fourth question, so this is the relevant audience or the relevant students for this particular course. Now coming to the next question, and in fact one of the most important questions, save the best for the last. What exam is this course relevant for? My dear friends, this particular course is relevant for November 19 exam students, or again CMA students, December 19 exams. So November 19 or December 19 exams, as the case may be, that particular syllabus or the law applicable for that particular examination would form the base of this particular course. But at the same time, we can also say that May 2020 exams or June 2020 exam students can also use this course, but these May 2020 and June 2020 exams students have to update themselves with the incremental amendments applicable for their exams, which we would also be helping out in some form or the other. So therefore, though this particular course is broadly designed for November or December 2019 exam students, the students of May or June 2020 exams can also use this particular course. Fine guys, so this is what this particular course is relevant for to answer the fifth question. And to conclude, this is only a teaser, so I would not want to drag on beyond the relevant time. So as the proverbial saying goes, the main picture is yet to come. So the main picture to abhi baki hai. So therefore, to conclude things and put things very simple, please remember, dear friends, this particular indirect tax paper for final examinations is a very highly scoring paper. Provided you do dedicated and consistent, sustained good efforts you are putting in, you can expect the results in a very good manner. There are a lot of people, a lot of students, my own students, who have touched the 80s and 90s also in this particular paper. I myself being one such person who had got those marks. Therefore, it's a very much achievable thing. In indirect tax final paper, it's a highly scoring paper. Keep that point in mind. And as I was also saying, this is a very relevant paper for your practice or your industry. As and when you step into your career, this particular paper becomes very relevant. Therefore, my dear friends, I hope that during the course of this session, you would pick up a few valid points which are very relevant for you, and over the course of this session, you would also develop an interest and possible a passion for this particular subject of indirect tax, just like how I had developed, and use it for your career. Fine guys, so with these concluding words, I again welcome you all to the course. So I hope you will have a good time studying GST. So with that particular thought process, so let's start and learn GST and indirect taxes. Thank you, my dear friends.